Welcome back to the Good Game Sportscast, guys. I know it's been a while since we've recorded an episode. Things have gotten busy. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. The Stadium Series game has happened. The Super Bowl has happened. Everything in a lot of sports has happened that we have to go over. And so I'll try to get a couple episodes in the next couple of weeks or so, just to try to get caught back up and start getting on this a little bit more consistently. But just with the way things in life have been happening, it's been a while. So can't wait to get this one to you. Huge shout out to Tripp for joining today. And yeah, can't wait to see what the conversation holds. See you guys. Enjoy. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Good Game Sportscast. You guys know me, I'm Carter. Today we're joined by a special guest, one of my old work buddies from Philmont, Tripp, here to talk about some various sporting things. And I know it's been a while since I've recorded, so there's plenty of stuff to talk over with my buddy Tripp here.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Tripp and as my friend Carter said, we met when we worked together at Philmont Scout Ranch. We hit it off pretty quickly as we both just talked about our obsession with sports. We had a great time working with each other in the dining hall. We played a lot of ping pong, and we hiked up a mountain to choose the time one day. So some really great stuff that summer. That's really the highlight of that summer for me.
Hey, ping pong was lit though. Even though I lit your tail up every time we played ping pong, it was fun. You gave me a run for my money a couple times.
Yeah, I got better over time. But I'll go ahead and give you all my history with sports. So I was born and I grew up in near the city of Atlanta, just a few miles north of downtown. I grew up knowing sports my entire life. I played some sports. When I was a kid, I played some baseball, football, did some swimming, but not there are no sports that ever really stuck with me for playing. I spent most of my time spectating, but
dude, you and me both.
So my main teams I pull for are I mainly watch football, like college football, NFL. I watch some baseball. I'm a very big fan of NASCAR. I'll speak more of that later, but I'll just go and give some more common information about me. So I'm a big Georgia Bulldogs fan. My dad, much of my family went to UGA, so I go to Stanford Stadium every fall to watch the Dogs play a few times. Always had a blast there. My mom went to Clemson, so I also go to Clemson games occasionally, and it's pretty fun there. I don't know if Carter enjoys me saying that because Clemson and NC State play each other. Fun fact, I watched Clemson beat NC State, I believe it was 6 years ago, in overtime, so...
Well, I mean, that rivalry runs a bit deep, but that's not the worst of them. Like, I can understand, especially if your mom went there, being a Clemson fan is okay. Well, I'm not going to punish anyone for being a Clemson fan, as long as you're not a Chapel Hill fan. Like my counterpart Preston.
I did see Georgia beat North Carolina also 6 years ago in Kirby Smart's first ever game. So
see, that's awesome.
And I also grew up with the Dogs, the Braves, the Falcons, also the Hawks. Not as close with the Hawks because I only went to one Hawks game period. But growing up as an Atlanta fan, they were quite a bit of highs and lows, but for the most part, there were some very big lows. Georgia lost several heartbreakers when we thought they were gonna they had a chance to win it all. The Falcons, I don't think I really need to explain further.
No, we all know what happened on that fateful 2016 evening. We don't need to talk about that one.
Yes, but I've also experienced some heartbreaks with the Braves, so it wasn't always easy. That big Falcons loss hit me hard, and still, some days are hard, because I feel like that whole fan base there is a bit fractured and all that. It's kind of hard to have some optimism, but recently I was able to, I guess, witness a lot of highs. From the Braves winning the World Series finally to the Dogs winning two in a row now. It was just an absolute thrill to watch both teams make it all the way to glory. So I feel a lot more optimistic about sports now. I've enjoyed watching sports a lot more now that I've been able to see a few of my favorite teams
It is
won the whole thing.
always nice to watch your teams win.
Yeah, but the biggest sport, I'd say the sport I am the biggest into is NASCAR.
Before we get into NASCAR trip, I want to ask you something about the Atlanta Falcons here.
All right, what's
So
up?
the Falcons are roughly in the hunt now for the division, I'd say, because Tom Brady left the Buccaneers, which leaves them in quite a big hole with Kyle Trask
Yeah,
at quarterback. The Panthers are kind of a wild card depending on how their quarterback play goes because they got a decent team around them, and the Saints seem to be stuck in a permanent rebuild since Drew Brees is retired. Who do you think the Falcons should get as quarterback? Now I'm going to give you a couple options here because these are things that have been plausible and brought up by the public and media.
mm-hmm.
You guys drafted, I believe, Desmond Ritter, who played a couple
Yeah.
games.
I've kept up with the Falcons a bit. I haven't watched a bunch of their games mainly because I can't really bring my energy to watch and potentially get disappointed. But I've kept tabs on them, so
Now,
I know about Kingsman Ritter.
so you got Ritter, who's a young quarterback with decent college experience. I mean, he won a lot of games at Cincinnati, but then again, Cincinnati's in the AAC, so that's a bit easier of a schedule. But
Yeah,
the Falcons have also been linked to Lamar Jackson now because of the contract disputes in
that's what I heard.
Baltimore. Now, I would like your opinion. Do you think you guys should start the super young guy and try to develop him into a franchise star on a rookie deal? Or would you rather the Falcons trade for Lamar Jackson and pay him some super max contract? Well, what do you think benefits the team in the future, and what would you, as a Falcons fan, like to see?
I'd say that's very interesting. I I would say I'm definitely leaning towards trying to develop Ritter because he has potential. He seems like a competent QB. Again, it's really early to tell. So who knows how he's going to do? Who knows if he'll be able to stick or if we may need to keep searching for a true QB. I think Lamar Jackson. I think he's a good QB. I think Heisman winner is definitely impressive on a resume. I think he's helped turn the Ravens around quite a bit because I remember after they won the Super Bowl 10 years ago, they were on that slump for a few years, and then Lamar Jackson was able to bring the team back up and play in a few playoff games. So,
People were debating for a
uh,
long time whether or not Joe Flacco was an elite quarterback. I think time has told the answer to that question is definitely no. But I mean, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, and that nut just happened to be three playoff games in 2012 that won him a Super Bowl.
it, yeah. So, but honestly, I think Lamar Jackson could be a good short-term solution. Like, I think if we get him, it could take us to maybe a two or three playoff stretch. But he's had his fair share of injuries, right? I heard he didn't play in the playoffs this year, or he didn't play at least one game in the
Yeah, well,
playoffs.
they had one game. They had a wild card game against the Cincinnati Bengals, which he was projected to play, and then Tyler Huntley played, and well, they barely lost. I mean, the only reason they lost was a goal line fumble that Sam Hubbard returned for a touchdown to close out the game, really. But
Yeah.
I think the Falcons are in a very interesting situation because they're really in the only division in the NFL that I would consider wide open at this point. Like, we're still
Yeah.
waiting for a dominant NFC South team to come out because Brady being gone, I don't want to say the Bucks before were a dominant team, but they definitely had a stranglehold on the division rivals. And I think now with Brady being gone, you definitely have a chance as the Falcons, really,
Yeah.
to go ahead and get up there.
Yeah. I still want to shoot long term because I feel like Lamar's injuries still concern me. I definitely think a younger and healthier QB is good in the long run. I don't know if we'll be able to. with Ritter, we may have to wait a little while to really perform better. So, I mean, I think Lamar Jackson could work, but I would say it's a good short-term solution, but based on some of the big deals that kind of really fell apart this past season, like Russell Wilson, uh, Deshaun Watson. I I very probably thought getting Deshaun Watson to come to Atlanta was a good decision, but I'm very glad that did not happen. Um, I but yeah, I would say Lamar definitely sounds like an enticing offer, but I'm gonna go with Keith Ritter because I think we should keep saving money on other players because the Falcons are they don't just need a better QB. They have a lot of other areas they need to improve on and invest money in. So
I
I
think you're
don't
right
think
on that one.
I think investing on a star QB like it could work. Like the Rams and the Bucks were able to pull it off, but it could also fall completely flat. So um, I would say yeah I don't really want to take that risk. I think just trying to build a steady rebuild um, and just keep
All
I
right,
feel
what?
like that just throws too much of a wrench into the mix, and I think Arthur Smith is kind of developing a team a bit steadily. So that's what I have to say about it.
All right, and one more thing. So your Georgia Bulldogs are back-to-back national champions currently.
Oh yeah.
Two really good teams. Where do you think this most recent team stacks up in like the last 10 years? Like, are there any other teams you would put above the Georgia Bulldogs from this past year?
Um, First off, I think this past year's Georgia team is neck and neck with the team last year. I think it's kind of different because this the 2022 team had a really stellar offense that put up huge points, but the 2021 team they had this absolutely top tier defense, and they had a good offense too, but their defense was completely something else. And yeah, I mean, both our teams have a good offense and good defense. That's what it takes to win championships. But we're specialized in two different categories. Uh, I guess that's what I kind of think. But about where they stack up against other championship winning teams, I'll have to say I don't think they're like completely at the top. I think I've seen a lot of people say that 2019 LSU with Joe Burrow, they still have a pretty decent leg up against both of our teams, and
I'd agree with that.
Burrow was completely insane. So I'm not going to disagree there. I'm sure some of Bama's teams would um, be above us in that type of area. I mean, again, we didn't have the 2022 team didn't have to play Bama, so and since we have a very interesting history with the Crimson Tide, I think it's probably 50-50 whether we beat them or whether we lose because um, I don't know, just Nick Saban always has something up his sleeve, and we definitely had some of our very off games. Like we almost Missouri put up a really good big fight against us last year, and we very lucky against Ohio State too.
Oh
Well,
my goodness,
Ohio
the
State played
kick,
a really good
the
game.
Ohio
So
State kicker, dude. Oh my god, I still feel bad for him. We've covered that one before,
I
but
do.
bad kick.
It's not fun though when it goes down to the kickers having to weigh the whole burden of the team. So
Oh
I do
yeah.
feel for the kicker, and
Then y'all
I think
cakewalked y'all cakewalked TCU. Like it was not. I thought
that was
TCU honestly was
crazy.
gonna put up a fight beforehand, seeing as how they handled Michigan. But y'all
Yeah,
like, I mean, that was the worst butt whooping I've seen in any championship game I think ever.
that was crazy. And I can't really explain what happened myself. I think I remember I read a comment from a Michigan fan somewhere that said they handed TCU the game on a silver platter, and I wouldn't be surprised because I think if Michigan showed up like they did against Ohio State, they probably would have beaten TCU. So I think I think both games definitely definitely were very unexpected because everyone thought we were gonna beat Ohio State handily because they got crushed by Michigan. So the very last time they played a game, but they put up a really good fight and almost beat us. And same goes to Michigan for getting completely obliterating Ohio State, and TCU playing a Big 12 schedule and losing to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. People thought they would have handled them too, but they didn't. So definitely some really good semifinal games, but also very, very unexpected.
All right. I know you've been digging to talk about this. Your favorite sport, I know, is NASCAR. I saw you wearing stuff about it all summer last year. And I've seen, I mean, I don't really follow NASCAR a whole bunch, so I guess now is the time for me to learn a little bit about it. Who were some of the bigger names in NASCAR this year, up and coming stars? Like, just give me like a quick 5 to 10 minute debrief on how NASCAR has been this year or what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, is it okay if I just give you a little background, just I guess my history with NASCAR?
Sure, go ahead.
I'll try to keep it short. So I started watching NASCAR in 2012, and that was mainly because I was obsessed with the Cars movies when I was a kid, and when I grew out of them, I kind of took that passion and put it into NASCAR, where it was actually inspired from, and I just completely attached to the sport. So I've been watching it for almost 11 years now. I've seen a bunch of different races. I've attended 22 races at 5 tracks in 10 years in person. Those are always a blast to go. It's nothing like how they are on TV. And the drivers I always pull for were Jeff Gordon up until when he retired, and since then I am a huge Chase Elliott fan because he's a hometown guy. I go to college just 20 minutes away from his hometown, so I am that close to where I guess he lives in the off season. And but yeah, about NASCAR currently, so NASCAR is very different from how it usually is now. They've definitely diversified the schedule a lot more. You don't see the same tracks that go left anymore. There's still plenty of them out there, but now they do one dirt race. Now they have 6 super speedway races where they kind of, instead of racing spread apart around the track, they kind of race in one pack and just draft off of each other and pass off each other for the lead. They're also added a lot more road courses. They're going to do their first ever street course this summer at Chicago. So definitely some big changes coming, and the sport's always changing. They're going to renovate one of their tracks. The track they're racing at today, actually, they're going to, it's called Auto Club Speedway in California. They're going to, it's a 2.5 mile track, but they're going to tear it down after this year and turn it into a half-mile short track. So there's that. But this is also the second year since they completely revamped the car. So they call it the next-gen car, and it's built completely differently. The wheels and set when you go to when the car's driving to do pit stops, they only have one lug nut now. So it's kind of like Formula One or IndyCar, where they only have one lug nut, so pit stops are really fast. it's also like that here. So instead of changing 5 lug nuts, they just change 1 lug nut. There's that, and the racing is also completely different. Um, Definitely in some areas, it's improved a lot more. It's also completely diversified the field. So out of 36 to 40 drivers who run races every year, there were 19 drivers that won a race last year.
Wow.
20 if you count the exhibition all-star race. So that's nearly half of the field who's won a race. And it's honestly crazy to think about because you don't really see too much of that in any other motorsports like IndyCar or especially Formula One. And
I have something to talk about.
what's up?
So, what do you think the growing popularity in F1 means for NASCAR? I know this is kind of a touchy subject for you because you've elaborated on this to me in the past, and you think F1 is overrated. But what do you think contributes to like the growing support of F1? And I don't want to say like the dying off of NASCAR, but it's definitely becoming a lot closer than it ever was between F1 and NASCAR in terms of viewership.
I'm not gonna. I won't debunk you. I do think Formula One is growing in popularity. I think because they race pretty much all around the world, where NASCAR races in one country. Of course, you're going to get a lot more viewership internationally. I like soccer and gridiron football. Gridiron football is centralized in the U.S., North America, while soccer is played all around the world. So there would be a lot more people interested in soccer. So it's like that for Formula One too. And so I think a lot of it is that they are catering a little more to the U.S. I've watched some episodes of the Drive to Survive documentary on Netflix. I know they did a street course in Miami, Florida last year, and they plan on doing one very soon at the Las Vegas Strip. So I definitely agree that it's rising, but I mean, I don't know if it's ever going to really overtake NASCAR. I do think NASCAR should make changes to make sure they kind of stay afloat because I don't think it's really dying off. I mean, the viewership isn't as rapidly declining as it used to. It's not its absolute peak, but it's I think a lot of it's because of the new car has kept viewership steady. So
I think
the sport.
Let me add something real quick. I think in terms of NASCAR, I don't think the problem is retaining viewers. I think it's growing the sport. And there's other sports that are having this problem. Like, I know living in a semi-big hockey market now, the Canes, like, NHL hockey is becoming a dying breed. They need to do some changes to that. I mean, you have some sports that really are needing kind of a revamp. And one that I know that has gotten a revamp is like bowling has been on more TV and stuff. But that's a lower grade sport. Not as many people watch it. But I think NASCAR would probably need to implement some changes to try to grow the sport as opposed to doing the same thing to keep the old fans interested.
One thing I will say about that, and this is to really build your argument, is I think they need to make some changes to the way they broadcast the sport on TV. So last Sunday was Daytona 500, and that race has received a lot of controversy for the way it was televised by Fox Sports. There were a lot of people saying that there were too many commercials. Like for most of the race, they barely got in a 200-lap race. They barely got 10 laps before they went to commercial. While they went to commercial, they sometimes do like side-by-side ads, and there was this big crash that happened during one of those ads where, I mean, you could see them crashing on the screen, but they did not take you back to the actual broadcast to comment about the crash. They just kept the commercials on while the crash was happening. So there's definitely a lot of controversy there, and I know Formula One, their races are pretty much entirely commercial free. I have no idea how they're able to pull off that, but NASCAR does have a new TV deal coming up with two of their two partners are right now are Fox and NBC, but it's either in 2024 or 2025 is when they're going to have to make a new TV deal, and I definitely think they should have just, I guess, just how just just the telecast in general. I think I do agree there should be less commercials. I don't know if I'd say eliminate commercials entirely because there are a lot more cautions in NASCAR than there are in Formula One. So, I mean, I don't think it would be terrible to leave some ads around to, I guess, help pass the time whenever there's a caution. But I definitely think they should try and find a way, if they can, to trim down commercials during green flag racing, and because I think that could draw a lot of people in. I think there could be some casual fans who watch the 500, and I could see them changing the channel if there were like too many commercials on while racing is green.
I'll say that I watched the last probably like 5 or 10 laps of it, and between all the crashes and stuff, it just felt like it was never going to end. And I think they said it was a record for how many laps were done in the Daytona 500. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seemed like it went on forever.
It did set a record. Yeah. I will say, I will tell you just a little bit about my thoughts about the race. I do agree with, for the most part, what people say about the coverage of the race, but I do think the race was mostly really good. There was a lot of clean racing throughout the first 80% of the race. Like they made it through. They made it halfway through the race without any crashes. So I much prefer clean racing than a bunch of crashes happening. And I know there are plenty of fans who like crashes and stuff, but I think when it comes to for the safety of the sport, but also to actually see like finishes like happen or naturally, I think just having all of them crash at the end and just having one kind of underdog winner of like the 20 cars that are left in the field. I'd say I much prefer the driver win with like 30 cars in the field without having all those crashes happen. But
yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting a little off track here, but
No, you're all good. Just I understand like the aspect of clean racing is so much better than like dirty crash racing. But I think the deal was at the end of that race, it was so close, and I don't know if all NASCAR races end that close. Like I'm assuming they probably do, because there really isn't much of a differential between first and second. But you see people making desperation moves at the end to try to get in front of people, and I mean when you're racing that tight in cars, that big, something's bound to go wrong eventually, and I guess they just had too many of those happen trying to win the Daytona this year.
Yeah, and they don't do this type of racing every single race. It's only at Daytona, Talladega, and they recently reconfigured the track at Atlanta as to where they do that similar type of racing. But again, they usually race more spread out. So there aren't as many crashes. Still plenty of them, but so I would say for the most part, it's not really a problem. But I guess, especially when you look at the 500 and you look at how a bunch of people tune in for that race, since it's, as many people say, the Super Bowl of NASCAR. Um,
I always thought the Indy 500 was.
the Indy 500.
I always thought that was the biggest race.
Um, yeah, well, the Indy 500 and the Daytona 500 are the biggest race in their like respective sports and respective other sports. Um,
Oh, are they different sports?
yeah, they're different sports entirely. IndyCar races the Indy 500, and that's entirely open wheel. They're like Formula One style cars that race mostly road courses in
Okay.
the U.S., but also some ovals, like how they race in NASCAR.
See, I always thought the Indianapolis 500 and the Daytona 500 were just the same race in different locations. You learn something new every day, I guess.
Yep. But yeah, Indy 500 is definitely cool. I've watched quite a few Indy 500s, and I definitely want to go to one someday because NASCAR is fast, but Indy cars, when they race on ovals, they go pretty much 230 miles an hour, and it's definitely a lot more dangerous. Unfortunately, there were a couple of drivers who were fatally injured in Indy car crashes in the past decade, but well over the past decade. But while NASCAR hasn't had any fatal crashes since Dale Sr. was killed in 2001, so IndyCar is a lot more risky, but racing is a lot more faster and intense. But, but yeah, I mean, I would say, I don't know, for which event, the Indy 500 or the Daytona 500 gets more coverage. I actually need to check that out myself. I think I'd say the Indy 500 is probably a lot bigger because there are the drivers who race in the Indy 500 come from quite a few different countries. They're not all from the U.S., so I'm sure there are plenty of other people outside of the country tuning in. NASCAR has mostly an American roster, so.
All right, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit here. As you may have heard, the Braves are covered by Bally Sports, correct?
Yes.
And
I don't know how much longer that's going to be.
That's what I was gonna say. The Atlanta Hawks also are ran by Bally Sports, and so are my Carolina Hurricanes. And there has been news broke recently throughout the NHL and other sports media outlets that Bally Sports is going bankrupt, and their TV deals will run until the end of this season for their respective sports, and then you're gonna have to find new ways to do it. So I speak more for the NHL and a little bit of the NBA, I guess, when I say that they have alternate setups in place, and I quote from the NHL is what they said. They said other ways to stream and have emergency backup situations. How often do you use Bally Sports to watch stuff, and what do you think is going to happen with the Braves broadcasting after Bally inevitably goes under?
I mean, well, first off, I'm not a fan of Bally after they completely dumbed down the TV graphics. The ones at Fox were fine, but then they just but when Bally took over, like the score display, which I am a very big nerd about, they completely just made it look like I was watching a game in 2009, and not in a good way. But with that little tangent aside, I would say I don't really know, honestly. I think the overall coverage by, the people who are announcing the games and all that, I don't think it'll be too different, but I did hear a lot of chatter about it going to streaming, or if it may go to streaming services, and
having to start pay for sports coverage, which is
yeah.
For me, I don't know, this is where I'm going to get into my realm a little bit. As everybody on this podcast knows, there are three things that I follow quite a lot, maybe four. I follow NFL and college football. I follow college basketball quite a bit, and the NHL. And the NHL is probably one of the more unique streaming, or the one of the more unique ones in terms of like broadcast deals, because
Yeah.
every team pretty much has their own independent broadcast group. Like very few of those teams get broadcasted by the same group. And I've had the pleasure to meet with most of the Valley Sports broadcasting crew for the Carolina Hurricanes, which has been very nice. I have most of their signatures on my Hurricanes jersey, but like with the rise of streaming, really, in the U.S. and pretty much around the world, really. I mean, you have things like Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, all these things. Not as much Netflix, but some of them are starting to get exclusive TV deals. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the world of sports right now is done really well through the use of just regular TV markets and stuff. I think if you start putting them on streaming services and you pay for individual games or individual teams and stuff, it's gonna get a bit hectic. Like
Yeah.
I know you watch a lot of sports, so you'll be able to relate to this, and you have a bunch of different teams. For
Mhm.
me, most of your teams are home teams. I mean, I root for a couple home teams, but one of the biggest teams I follow is the Seattle Seahawks. And being from North
Oh
Carolina,
yeah.
it's kind of hard to follow the Seahawks when you live in North Carolina. But
Yeah.
getting back to the point, do you think that getting rid of all the streaming, like getting rid of all TV deals and doing exclusive streaming services, do you think that's a good idea for sports, for the sports industry as a whole?
I have very mixed feelings about that. I don't really have much of an opinion because um, I fortunately I'm able to. I already have quite a few streaming services. I have Netflix, I have Hulu, I have HBO Max. So I don't think anything will really impact some of the stuff I watch. But I do think it's starting to get a bit inevitable that we're heading towards that state of streaming. I
I
still think
agree.
we're gonna get. I don't. Uh, yeah, I think. But I mean, I'm just not sure if it means if paying to watch games means that you get less commercials. I don't think that'll be entirely. I don't think that's going to be entirely bad. I mean, I think it'll be hard for to pay extra for these types of deals, especially when you need to pay for two separate streaming services to follow two separate leagues and teams.
Mm-hmm.
But if that means you get something back from that, like again, like less commercials, then um, I think I think people will be. I mean, again, there will always be people out there who will just rage over everything that's changing. But I think if there are more benefits and fewer ads, then I think that'll kind of calm the concerns of plenty of people. Like if NASCAR ended up on a streaming service and I'd have to pay to watch a streaming service, but that means I would have a lot fewer commercials to watch, then I would be okay with that. But if things are still the same and if they're still uh, crap ton of commercials that I have to go through, even if I have to pay extra for a streaming service, I wouldn't be too happy about that. So, I mean, I don't really know. I haven't done much research into it. I think um, it's we're definitely in that big transitional phase. But I think in 5 to 10 years we'll see if a lot, maybe even most sports on streaming services. But I guess I'm kind of just kind of take playing it year by year and just kind of. But I think I mean I guess what I'm saying is I don't really pay too much attention to it, but
All right.
it is something to keep in mind when these TV talks happen.
All right, Trip, is there anything you want to know from me? Like any questions you have for me? I mean, being on the podcast, I'm sure I brought up some stuff you wanted to talk about, but there's probably also some other topics that you had notes for, you said, that you would like to talk about. Anything for me?
I think I covered most of what we were talking about, but I will say a little bit about the NHL. I know you're a really big NHL fan. I never grew up with hockey. I never played hockey. None of my friends and family watched hockey, but I did tune in to the Stanley Cup playoffs last year when I saw that they had like 5 game sevens in the first round. I was like, oh, that's crazy. I actually kind of want to watch those games just to see what happens. And I just kind of just started following the sport from there. I started, I use Reddit a lot, so I like reading threads of like different teams and just seeing how happy, but also very pissed off a lot of fans are. They're saying, fire this guy, fire that guy. We're never going to do this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, hockey fans are
I can
ruthless,
relate to
bro.
it a lot. Oh, yeah, I remember when I think that Blues player, was it Kadri? Was Kadri on the Blues?
It was he was on the Avalanche and they were playing the Blues and stuff. And dude, the stuff against Kadri last year was
Yeah, he
ridiculous.
got a bunch of, like, racist messages and death threats. So that was definitely crazy. I mean, it was definitely not fun. I never want anyone to go through that.
No.
But
All right, Trip. So who are you pulling for when Stanley Cup playoff time comes along? Like, who would you consider? I know you said you try to stay neutral, but if you had to pick one team, and sports honestly comes down to this, you always have at least one team you root for. Who would you like to see win the cup this year?
so I I I think I may lean a little towards the Hurricanes just because I've known you for a while and just how obsessed you are about them. It is fun to just kind of watch and think about how are you feeling through all that. But there are some other teams that have caught my eye. The Seattle Kraken, like I really love their team colors. And I heard they're good this year. I don't know if they still are.
They've been so they're in the running for the playoffs right now. I think they'll probably make the playoffs. For an expansion team to be doing this good in their second year isn't too far off, but the Kraken have been a good story this year. They need to put together some home wins, but I think they're a team on the rise. Definitely a very interesting story. I mean, you look at the two expansion teams we've had in the last 7 years. I think it's been the Kraken last year were
The Golden Knights had a crazy first year. I remember they made it to the final in their first ever year.
yeah they did they made it to the finals as an expansion team, and really if Alex Ovechkin wasn't a thing, they probably would have won it. But yeah, I mean, you look at the expansion teams. I think that's something wonderful about sports is like getting new teams and new markets, and that's something we haven't seen too
Yeah,
much from other sports, like relocations and all that. I mean, they're good for the sports industry, and
yeah.
with the
It
NHL adding
definitely
two more
bring
teams, it's been great.
yeah. Relocations bring a lot of pros, but they also bring a lot of cons. I'll reference that whole Browns relocation fiasco where they relocated and became the Ravens, and the Browns got a new team the next year or two, a very crappier team. And a lot of fans were pissed off, especially since it kind of like, I guess the owner went, like, turned, they kind of backstabbed them from what I heard. So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it opens new markets, but it also can destroy a lot of other markets. So, but yeah, I mean, relocations, uh, expansion teams, they don't happen often anymore because they've already happened so much for all these sports. It's kind of hard to, I guess, really contain more teams, you know. Like, the NFL, it's perfectly organized at 32 teams, 16 teams per conference. 4 teams per 8 divisions. Um, so and it would really like break that balance if they were to add an expansion team to it, because there would be one division that would have to get 5 teams.
Ooh, and I've got something to mention on that. And this is probably one of the last things I'll cover because we're running a bit long here. We're almost at 45 minutes. Time flies. But the NFL has actually talked about, and Roger Goodell has definitely spoke about this. You've probably heard about it, adding a European league, or not just a league, but like a division of a couple teams. I've notably been on the fence, and people have definitely called me out on it and saying it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, blah 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 blah. But with there being a European franchise, with there being a couple European franchises, obviously London is probably going to get a team first. If any international club were to come up, it would be probably in London. Do you think that adding an expansion team or relocating or doing something in the NFL to get some European teams, do you think that is a good idea?
I don't think, from a marketing standpoint, it would open up a lot. It would open an entirely different area that would invest time into the NFL. Which, I mean, given how their international games seem to be pretty successful, I judging by the news they're trying to do this, if I assume they're successful. Um, I mean, I don't blame them for trying to go further into this project, but at the same time, I feel like it would make at least a little more sense to create like an own like sub league, like kind of like it made and endorsed by the NFL, but they don't like play the teams in the NFL because that would cost a lot of travel money, as teams have to travel to and back from a very different part of the world every single week, and I feel like that would add a lot of travel time. I'm sure any environmentalists out there wouldn't be too happy about that with jet stuff and all that. And but I think like creating a league like within Europe, like maybe get 8, 10, 12 teams in different cities in Europe, and create a league where they just travel and kind of duke it out within each other. I think that'd be a good start. It may not where they want to end off, but I think just creating their own like mini league
Mm-hmm.
in Europe, where like where these teams like build off of each other. I think that'd be pretty fun, honestly. But it'll definitely take a lot of work, um, and I'd say it's definitely very ambitious, but it I don't really blame them trying to expand even further out of the country because, again, as my point is, as I said in my point before, soccer is international, but football is mainly isolated to North America. So I think they, to kind of try and take a page of soccer's book, is a good idea for marketability in the NFL.
All right, Trip. Well, we're just about out of time here. Thank you for joining me today. It was a
Oh
pleasure.
yeah, no problem. This was really fun, and it's good to talk to you again. I hope life is going well for you in North Carolina, and I'd love to be back here if at any time. But
Oh yeah, definitely.
again, thank you again. I really appreciate you offering me to join this podcast, and yeah, that was a really fun discussion. So
Yeah,
hope
definitely a
things
great
keep going
time.
well with you. What's
It's
up?
it's awesome getting to talk to getting to talk to people with different perspectives on different things.
Yeah.
Like someone who's more involved in some of those racing sports than I am. So definitely gonna have to have you back on after some more of these major events and stuff. Anyways, Trip.
Yeah. I'll definitely have a lot more to say when I start going to some NASCAR races this year. The first one I'll go to is in less than a month, so I'm definitely anticipating that.
Well, Trip, thanks for joining me, buddy. It's been real.
You too, man.
Appreciate
Good
your
luck with
appreciate your
the
time.
rest of your podcast.
Thank you. All
Also,
right.
good luck with trying to get that webcam fixed too.
Yeah, for real. I'll have to work on that.
All right, man. Take care. See you later.
Thanks for watching the video, guys. Click here to see another video that YouTube thinks you should watch, and click here to subscribe to our channel.